What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I want to talk about where African Americans should go when it comes to Africa, where they should start, right? Because that seems to be the topic of discussion right now, is that where should African Americans start? And I've noticed on several shows what's starting to happen is, and this is just how black people are, how African people are. We all kind of like this. As African Americans start shopping around for, and traveling to different African countries, to see where they fit, what place they like, they start giving their opinions and start critiquing. Sometimes, people can get jealous, people can get offensive, because when you start comparing country to country and you start talking about pros and cons, sometimes those cons can be offensive to, someone from that country, right? And it's not fair to compare all African countries with each other, because each African country has a reason why they're in the situation they're in today. They have a reason why they are, they may have lack of infrastructure compared to other countries. They may have been more affected by colonialism more than other countries. And a lot of these things need to be taken into consideration when critiquing African countries for a place to live, right? So I think, like, for instance, South Africa has a better infrastructure. Kenya has better infrastructure than a lot of parts of Africa. If you notice, those are where the Europeans kind of like they kind of concentrated themselves and forced the local people to build these structures on behalf of rich corporate white folks, right? And some of these other countries were more used as just grocery stores to shop for resources, and just they made lots of highways and shopping aisles, right? So they can extract the resources from the place, right? They didn't necessarily want to live there, so to speak, but they want to just extract the resources. And with those various different colonial techniques of the Europeans and destroying and taking advantage of Africa, it caused various countries or various different locations in Africa that are now turned into these countries with these borders that we didn't create. They're all in different situations because of it. Now, I believe first African Americans need to figure out why they, before they make a decision, they should travel to various different African countries. And the people who are like me, people like myself, I believe, and this is my own opinion, right? I believe African Americans should simply do their DNA, right? And wherever they see their DNA, right, whatever countries, they should visit those countries if possible, right? To see where, their homeland, right? To see where their ancestors came from, to see if that's a place that they would want to live. I also believe that African Americans, because the majority of us were shipped from the slave coast from Ghana and Nigeria, I believe we should concentrate in those places, because the slave coast, West Africa, those are our actual people specifically, and the culture that they have there fits more with the culture that we in the West, the Caribbeans, the African Americans, the Afro-Brazilians, we fit with West Africa because we still practice the same culture, even though it's been modified over time. And we still practice the same culture as West Africans, just a light version, a modified version. So and the people and the way they are, it fits better with us as far as business, right? As far as blending in with the community, blending in with the people, and being able to operate with the same somewhat similar mindset, even though there are definitely cultural differences, right? Obvious. But we fit better, and we're more accepted, and we're able to blend in. We're able to move about more naturally and freely in West Africa as far as with the people. Now, with that also being said, with West Africa, you got to deal with the obvious issues within these countries. The lack of infrastructure, sometimes, the lack of 24-hour power in some places, just the lack of those structures in and of itself, right? Now, I would say, that in some other countries, have the same issue, right? But this is the age at which those things are being being taken care of. They're being solved, whether slow or fast, depending on what country it is, you know. But those problems, right? And that's why I say, if people like me, those problems are also business opportunities. So if you want to go to Africa and you want to start a country, if you want to start a company that's going to be around for generations, that you want to pass down to your children and your children's children, if you want to go to Africa and start a legacy, if you want to completely change the trajectory of your family, and you want to start a legacy to where your company name and your family name and your reputation goes on for generations, if you want to take the time and to build something like that, and you want to be a Fortune 500 company, you want your children, your grandchildren to be part of the 1% in the continent of Africa, and to create more businesses and put them in the elite class of African society. If you want to do that, if that's your thing, then West Africa is the place you should go to, right? But understand, if you're going to do that, you got to be the kind of person that can deal with all of the drama that's going to come along with that. Meaning, you're going to have to learn the systems of these West African countries. You're going to have to deal with the issues with the lack of infrastructure and learn how to get around them, because a determined individual can get around them. Like, for instance, a big problem with running businesses in Nigeria in the countryside is the lack of 24-hour power through the utility resources, right? But there are solutions that if you take those solutions at the beginning, if you invest and spend your money on solutions instead of pocketing any type of profit at the front end, you can handle those and take care of those. So what I do is I invest in solar power. Solar power, once I initially pay for my systems, it's paid. So my shop, right, my two shops have 24-hour power. My two shops have redundant solar power. I have generators, and I'm also connected to the grid. So whenever the grid, they do decide to bless their own people with power that they pay for on a monthly basis, I collect that power and I save it in my power banks, right, to have redundant energy. So I solved the problem that's a big problem for people wanting to do business on the continent myself by spending my money up front and investing initially in the things to solve the problems that could be an issue for me, right? There's always a solution to any problem, right? So you got to be a solution-oriented based individual that's willing to learn systems, willing to navigate and do the real work, right? Real is a different type of grind, because as an African American, you may go over there and you want to go 100 miles an hour, but the speed limit in West Africa is 25 miles an hour. You're only going to be able to go 25 miles an hour right now. Until things change and you can go 80 miles, you're only going 25 miles, and you need to be able to operate with that reality. Meaning you got to have patience, understanding the people live a slower, more a different type of life there. They stop and smell the roses. That's a normal thing. You don't have to remind them, they do it, right? And it's like that in lots of parts of Europe too. They don't have that same hustle 25 hours in a 24-hour day mentality. So if you have a hustle 25 hours and 24-hour day mentality, and you get there and you realize you're trying to make business partners and relationships with people who don't have that same mindset, you could possibly get frustrated and wonder why you can't get things done as fast as you want to get them done, even if you have the money on hand to get it done. But trust and believe it's going to get done. But you got to remember, you're only going 25 miles an hour. And there's a benefit to only moving 25 miles an hour. You get to enjoy the process, and you get to watch the journey, and you get to slow down so that you can make less mistakes on your way. Because I'd rather make a mistake going 25 miles an hour than make a mistake going 80 miles an hour. And trust and believe, I made plenty of mistakes doing business in Africa, and I'm very much glad that I was only able to go 25 miles an hour while making those mistakes, okay? Now, if you are just trying to escape America, escape the West, and you need all the amenities, or you need the majority of the amenities of the West, you're not necessarily looking to make it a Fortune 500 company. You're not necessarily looking to be a mogul or to make your family multi-generational, first upper class elite, members of African society. Now, keep in mind, you can do this. I'm just saying, if you're not necessarily looking for that and you just want to be able to get to the continent and just have your 24-hour power, have your, have all the amenities that you can be comfortable, right? And I'm talking about the people who would never go camping because they don't find camping fun. People who who, if they did go camping, they're gonna need a TV, they're gonna need all the amenities of their house to go camping. Those people who go glamping, people who don't like bugs and can't stand being outside because of the bugs, people who you know, those type of people who need pampering. They're so modern that they're not, I'm not calling them soft or weak or nothing, but people who just feel more comfortable living in a modern setting. Kenya and South Africa would be the best bets, you know, because they developed the same way as the rest of the, you know, the European colonial enclaves. They have the infrastructure for you to move right in there and be set, right? And maybe you can get a job if you want a job. Maybe you have enough money because you're retired from here, you know, or something like that, and you just want a place you can buy a nice house for a good price with good people, you know. East Africa is the place for you, right? And you can also do business there. Like, that's clearly, you can make yourself a Fortune 500 business there too. I'm not saying you can't at all. Definitely the same. There's a lot of opportunity over there, but development and movement is more in East Africa. They've been on the march a little longer than West Africa because they've had the ability to do so. So you might have, you know, so there's more American companies there. There's more Europeans over there. There's more competition over there, right? But in West Africa, because so much time has been spent denigrating West Africa, so much time has been spent ignoring West Africa, so much time has been spent disregarding West Africa, that there's not a lot of people looking at West Africa, you know, as a place to do business, because people feel like it's an unstable environment to do business, which in some cases it is, right? But for the adventurous and ambitious African American who sees that as an opportunity, because a volatile market is the market in which you can make the most amount of money, right? Every good investor knows that the volatility is where you make the money, right? So even though it can be high risk to do business in West Africa, the reward is next level. The reward in West Africa for doing business in systems at which is not being flooded by competition right now, where the prices are still relatively cheap for right now, like, you can't beat it with a stick anywhere. All the resources, all the opportunity, basically no competition. And even if there was all of a sudden an influx of competition within West Africa, there's so much opportunity. We got probably a couple decades worth of influxes of competitors in any market, and you still would have room for everybody to benefit while competing with your counterparts. So for the aspirational, business-minded individual African American who wants to go home, because West Africa and Central Africa is home. All right, Africa now. Kenya is home. Kenya is home to all Africans. Kenya is like home. That's like, all right, Kenya's like your grandma's house that everybody grew up in, right? Kenya is like your grandma's house that everybody grew up in. Everybody came from grandma's house, right? That's home base for everybody in the family, right? But then you got your house, your mama's house. Our mama's house, our daddy's house is West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, you know, Sierra Leone, you know, those places, Cameroon, the slave coast. That's our mama house, right? And we need to give our mama house more attention, our daddy house more attention, right? Because there's great opportunities there. So if you want to go home, your mama house, your daddy house, you invest with your brothers and sisters that's still in your mama house, still in your daddy's house. That will fit more with the ambitious, you know, African who wants to really do something big and is willing to take risks, and that don't mind camping sometimes, if you know what I mean. And that's the most tactful way to say it. If you don't mind camping sometimes and doing what people do when they go camping, if you don't mind getting dirty sometimes, because you don't have to, but sometimes, then West Africa is the place, because the overall benefit for starting from the mud is much better than starting from an already built foundation. You know what I'm saying? Easy to dig in the mud, right? Easy to make space in the mold, you know, things in the mud. You understand what I'm saying? So, but I think but there's a place in Africa for every single African American, every type of personality, and I really don't think that we should limit ourselves to just those places. I think we should consider North Africa, which is a place that because of the situation in North Africa, how, you know, it could be sometimes. I think that's also a place that we need to consider. There are places in North Africa that I think African Americans could thrive and could do good business, right? in North Africa. So that place should definitely be considered. I think one day the Congo, the DRC, the whole central of Africa is going to be like, there's going to be a rush of us going there. But right now, it's not so much because of all the international interference, right? So I honestly think once Nigeria finally gets politicians who's ready to put Nigerians first, and maybe forego a little bit or or at least majority of the corruption, and once they start to, really invest and take advantage of their opportunity, and Nigeria finally comes on deck, along the line like Ghana and Sierra Leone and places like that. Once they come on deck and become the true powerhouse that they're meant to be, and we can start relaxing a little bit on Nigeria and start focuses on the Congo and the DRC, I think that'll be the next major destination for the diaspora, honestly, because like I said, most of us come from Nigeria, right? That's in America. But the ones that come from Nigeria also have their second major genetic origin is the Congo, is the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. The other Congo, it's two. I always get confused with them, but both the Congos, that whole area, the whole Central Africa, we're like majority Nigerian and Central African, and those people obviously have a connection, and they are the same people. Like, that's the thing, we're not understanding because these lines confuse us. But these groups are pretty much the same people, right? But different groups, different kingdoms, but they're all the same people, and they're our family too. And I believe we don't give enough attention to Central Africa, because right now we're concentrated on West Africa and East Africa, but we need to at some point start paying more attention and put our eyes on Central Africa and give them some more love and attention, right? But yeah, I believe that there's a place for everybody in Africa, right? For every type of black personality everywhere. But I do believe we need serious-minded business guys who want to be a part of the change. West Africa, going back to your mama and daddy house, is the place we need to go to, for those guys that want to make change. But for those guys that's just looking to secure their future and they don't necessarily want to make big business, or maybe they already have a business in America and they just want to leverage their money and their opportunities to live, and they just want to go to East Africa, that's good too, right? But I think that we all need to be careful when going to these countries and going on certain shows and critiquing these countries. And remember that whenever you talk bad about a country, you're talking bad about the people. Whenever you're critiquing a country, you're critiquing people. You're judging, and your words can be taken seriously, because remember, African Americans are an influential group of people, and that's no small thing. So when African Americans who go to these countries, and these countries they're opening their arms to us, right? They're inviting us in. And the last thing we need to do is sit there and be disrespectful, to our, we're the guests. Even though it's our home, we've been gone for a while. So in reality, we are the guest, right? Even though we're being invited to stay, to come back home, we are still the guest, and we need to act like that. So we can't be disrespecting other people's countries when we're critiquing them. We have to be tactful by the way we pros and cons these countries, because we don't want to pit country against each other when we're making choices about which place is better. Because there's no place in Africa that's better than another place per se. They're just countries that fit certain people better than other people. That's all it is. It's just certain countries fit certain personalities. Certain countries fit certain demographics of people better than others. That's it. It's just what country fits you the most. Because every single African country has a quality that any African American or African Caribbean could appreciate, right? And it could love and find useful and helpful. Everyone in every African country has their own individual problems that you are going to have to deal with. And we have to understand as African Americans that just like America has its individual problems that we deal with, we have to deal with it. We have our own set of unique issues within this country that we deal with on a daily basis. When you move to another African country, and when you decide to stay there, so you can benefit from all that those countries have to offer, you also have to take and accept the issues within that country. You have to take and accept the issues within that country that come along with all the benefits that comes along with that country. And you have to learn and understand why those situations are the way they are, why those issues are the way they are? Can you be a solution? Are you a burden? You know what I'm saying? What's your position within that country involving that solution? You know, are you going to be a benefit, or are you going to be a detriment? You know, to that situation, right? And then make your decision whether you can handle those set of problems that come along with that country. Because in reality, you got to deal with it. Like in Nigeria, there's a set of issues in Nigeria that I know I got to deal with. Right now, I have to deal with the inflation, the high cost of gas, of petrol. I have to deal with the high cost of taxes and tariffs if I wanted to ship my goods that I'm producing to America. So now I have to deal with the local markets. So I'm selling a lot of my vegetables and a lot of my goods in the local markets. I can't afford to ship it to America and sell it to my people here, which I love to do right now. But international politics says if I did that, I would have to overcharge my people here, and it wouldn't benefit them. So if it doesn't benefit them, it doesn't make business sense to me. So all my business is localized within the village, within the town and city that I operate in. And I have to learn how to do that, right? I have to adjust and adopt my business strategy based off what's happening in Nigeria, the politics on the ground. And those are the things you have to take in consideration when doing business, because you're going to have to deal with American business, American institutions, and whatever country you pick institutions, especially if you're going to be international going back and forth, because the relationship America has with that country is important when it comes to what kind of business you're going to do in that country. You know what I'm saying? So you have to take all that into consideration. Whether the country you pick in Africa is friendly, is an American ally, whether there's contentious, whether they're, you know, whatever the nature of that relationship is going to determine how easy and how hard it is for you to do international business or even business on the ground as it is. And that's just reality. So, you know, I just think that there's a place for any African American. There's a place for you. There are people for you. And one good thing is, no matter what part of Africa you go to, the beautiful people of Africa will open their arms and they will embrace you. They will bring you into their communities. They will accept you 100%, whether it's East, Central, South, or West Africa. I left out North Africa a little bit, you know, for certain reasons, but there are people in North Africa that will accept you, you know, as the, you know, our people up there will accept you, you know, as them, you know. So anyway, I think I've talked enough on this topic. You know, I just think that be careful about how you critique these countries when you're talking on these panels, because there are people listening and you can hurt some feelings and you can disrespect people and you can, you know, your intentions can be misunderstood, you know, because all of us are speaking either the Queen's English, right? You know, or some form of English, but it doesn't mean that the words that we say are interpreted the same way. Got to take that in consideration. Communication, better, more understandable communication is also another key. So we make sure that what we say in our American English just translate to what they say in the Queen's English that they speak, or the versions of English that they speak, so they don't think we saying one thing when we really mean another. So that's all I got to say for now. With this, I think any place in Africa is good. It all depends on what you want to do, you know. But I encourage everybody to keep looking. Check every one of these countries. Give every country the benefit of doubt and a thorough look through, a thorough visit, a thorough assessment, and then make your choice and be conscious about the things that you say when making those choices. That's all I got to say. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.